Hey there! Welcome to my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Leilani. We are live streaming right now here on Facebook, on TikTok, on where are we? YouTube, and on Twitch. And we are going to continue on with our book, the Medium's book, Allan Kardak. We are on chapter 12. And I know the last one that we did, the last video we did, the content was fascinating. It was a lot of fun to read with you guys. Lots of good questions. So let's keep that energy up. I definitely want to see that energy. So we're going to read for about 45 minutes. And then, like, the last 10, 15 minutes, I'll take whatever questions you guys have about the chapters that we just read. Okay. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share this live with others to let them know that we're doing this. Let them know that they can catch up on all the previous chapters from both the Spirits book and the Medium's book on my YouTube channel, The Magical Solution. And so they don't have to feel like they're left out. Okay? So let's do it. The chapter 12. Please do not make fun of me, you guys. I want to read for you, but like sometimes the words are just too big. All right. And this is a word that's too big for me. It's called pneumatography. Pneumat- Pneumatography or direct writing pneumatophony. Okay. So let's do this because this word is going to come up several times and I'm going to fumble every single time. So please don't get mad. Thank you. So pneumatography is a writing produced directly by a spirit without any intermediary. It differs from psychography, which is the transmission of a spirit's thought in writing through the hand of a medium. The direct writing phenomenon is unarguably one of the most extraordinary in Spiritism. But, as strange as it may at first appear to be, today it is proven and incontestable fact. If a theory is needed in order to comprehend the possibility of spiritist phenomenon in general, this case especially requires one, since it is one of the most startling presented so far. Nonetheless, it ceases to seem supernatural when the principle underlying it is understood. When this phenomenon first appeared, the dominant feeling about it was one of distrust, naturally. Freud was quickly suspected because everyone, in fact, knows about so-called invisible inks, whose marks are invisible at first, but become visible sometime after the writing. Hence, it seemed like it was possible abuse of people's credulity. And we cannot say that such has never occurred. We are even convinced that whether out of a mercenary interest or plain vanity, or to elicit belief in their powers, some individuals have employed such subterfuges, and that's a whole situation about Freud. We'll get into that in a different chapter. Just because something can possibly be imitated, however, it is absurd to conclude that it therefore does not exist. So, haven't the means of imitating somnambulistic lucidity to the point of causing illusion been recently discovered? And just because this deceitful method has been used in all of the carnivals, must we therefore conclude that there are no true somnambulists? Just because some real retailers sell adulterated wine, can we say that there is no such thing as pure wine? The same applies to direct writing, however. The precautions that were taken to assure the reality of the phenomenon were very simple and easy, and thus to this, there are no longer any doubt about the phenomenon nowadays. Since the possibility of writing without an intermediary is an attribute of spirits who have always existed and in every era have produced the various phenomenon with which we are familiar, they surely must have produced direct writing during antiquity as well as today. This could explain the appearance of the four worlds written by Belshazzar Party Hall. During the Middle Ages, so steeped in secretive wonders which the state tried to hush up, direct writing must also have been known about. Perhaps in the theory regarding the modifications that spirits can produce in matter, and which we developed in chapter, what was it? Chapter 8? The principle for the medieval belief in the transmutation of metals may be found. Whatever the results obtained in previous eras may have been, however, it was only after the popularization of spirit manifestations that the issue of direct writing began to be taken seriously. The first time it became known in Paris a few years ago seems to have been when Baron Gutzon Tubble published a very interesting work on the subject, employing a large number of facsimiles, ugh, that had been written in this manner. The phenomenon had already been known about in America for quite some time. Gu- Gullenstum, Gullen Stubbles. That's his name. That's his actual name, you guys. Gullen Stubbles. Oh my gosh, poor guy. His social position, his independence, and the respect he enjoyed in high society undeniably discounted any suspected voluntary fraud because he had no ulterior motive to encourage. At most, we could assume or we could accept what had been, the victim of illusion himself. However, a decisive fact was presented against such a notion. The same phenomenon was witnessed by other persons who had taken all the necessary precautions for avoiding any fraud and cause of error. As with most of the non spontaneous spirit manifestations, direct writing is received through meditation, prayer, and evocation. Many times it has been obtained in churches, on tombs, and at the foot of statues and images of personages so evoked. Sorry. Yet, it is obvious that the location serves only to influence meditation and engender greater mental concentration, since it has been shown to be equally obtainable without such accessories and in the most ordinary places, such as upon simple domestic furniture, whenever the required moral conditions exist, and if the necessary mediumistic faculty is available. At first, it was found that it was necessary to place a pencil and paper together. Thus, the phenomenon could be more easily explained. And since we know that spirits can move and dislocate objects, and that they can sometimes pick them up and throw them about, then they could easily pick up a pencil and write with it. Since they can also write by using the medium's hand and or a planchette as an intermediary, then they can surely write directly. Consequently, it was soon discovered that the pencil was unnecessary. That is enough to supply that it was enough to supply a sheet of paper, folded or not, that in a few minutes letters will begin to appear. Here, the phenomenon completely changed its character, and we were introduced to another order of ideas. The letters were written with some kind of a substance, and since we're not the ones who furnished it, the spirit itself had to produce and bring it forth. But from where? That was the question. Now, if we refer back to chapter 8, numbers 127 and 128, we will find a complete explanation for this phenomenon. In this type of writing, a spirit does not use our substance or our instruments. It itself produces what it needs by drawing matter from the universal primitive element, which, under the influence of the spirit's will, undergoes the necessary modifications to attain the desired effect. Are you listening to this, you guys? He's talking about spirit matter. Okay, some people call it plasma, some people call it other things, but an actual manifestation of an object, of writing, of clothing, of whatever is being produced by the spirits themselves. And we talked about that back in chapter 8. And we talked about what this material is. We talked about how those spirits can manifest that. So definitely go back to my YouTube channel, go back to chapter 8 so you can hear about all of that. Whew, child. In this way, it can produce the writing of a red pencil, typographical printer's ink or ordinary ink, like black ink, or even typographical characters that are sufficiently firm to leave an indentation in the paper, and we have had the opportunity to witness. The daughter of one of our acquaintances, she was a girl of about 12 or 13 years, received pages written in something resembling pastel colors. Such was the result that led us to the phenomenon of the snuff box. And this was back in chapter 7, question number 116. A matter we discussed at great length because it seemed to be an opportunity to probe into one of the most important laws of Spiritism, a law whose understanding could clarify many mysteries around the invisible world. It is thus that the light can be derived from an apparently ordinary incident. We only need to observe closely something we had everyone else can do when we do not limit ourselves to watching effects without looking for the underlying cause. If our faith becomes stronger day by day, it is because we understand. Make sure you understand if you want to win serious adherence. The understanding of matters has a further result in that it establishes a dividing line between truth and superstition. If we take into consideration the advantages that direct writing can offer, we will admit that until now, its main usefulness has consisted in the material proof of an important fact, the intervention of a hidden power that can use this process as a new means of manifesting itself. However, communications obtained in this way are rarely very lengthy. They are generally spontaneous and are limited to words, sentences, and quite often unintelligible symbols. They may occur in all languages Greek, Latin, Syriac, in hieroglyphics, etc. But they cannot yet lend themselves to the continuous and rapid conversations obtained through psychotography, writing using the medium's hand. Okay, so now we're on the subcategory of pneumatophony. Pneumatophony. Okay. Now, since spirits can produce noises and raps, they can naturally make all kinds of cries and vocal sounds, including imitating the human voice, either right, either right at our side or in the air. We call this phenomenon pneumatophony. According to what we know about the nature of spirits, we can imagine that some of those who belong to lower orders are deluded with the belief that they can speak as they did when they were alive. We must therefore avoid taking for occult voices all sounds with an unknown cause behind them or a simple ringing in the ears, and especially accepting the popular belief that ringing in the ears are warning us that something is talking about us somewhere. These ringings have a purely physiological cause and are meaningless. Okay, so the only reason why I'm laughing is because right now on social media, everyone in the spiritual community is talking about the ringing in the ears and how they are being spoken to by spirits and how like ringing of the ears is an indication that you know are being communicated by your spirit guides and all that. And this book, once again written back in the olden days, is like, no, the ringing in the ears means that you broke it, bitch. Like there's no there's nothing there. That is so funny. Okay, these ringings have a sorry, I was gonna read it again. Um, they are meaningless, whereas the sounds of pneumatophony express thoughts, and we can thus recognize that there is intelligence rather than an accidental cause behind them. As a guiding principle, we can establish the fact that only obviously intelligent effects can attest to the manifestation of spirits. As for other effects, The odds are more than a 100 to 1 in favor of them being produced by fortuitous causes. When we are half asleep, we frequently hear words, names, and sometimes entire sentences distinctly pronounced so loudly that we awaken startled. And although some of these incidences may really be manifestations, there is nothing so remarkable about them that we cannot attribute them to a cause similar to what we've developed in the theory of hallucination back in chapter 6, number 111. Hence, what is usually heard in the state of no consequence, the same does not apply, however, when we are truly awake, because then, if we are actually hearing a spirit, we can usually exchange thoughts with it and strike up a normal conversation. Spirit sounds, or pneumotophonics, manifest in two very distinct ways. Sometimes as an inner voice that resonates within us, and although the words may be clear and distinct, they are not physically produced, and other times as words that are outside of us and which are so distinctly articulate that they may seem to be coming from someone standing right beside us. Whichever way it is produced, the phenomenon of pneumatophony is nearly always spontaneous and it can rarely be evoked. Interesting. Interesting. Interesting, right? Okay, so we're now on chapter 13, and this chapter is called Psychography. Psychography. And so the subcategories within this chapter is indirect psychography, baskets and planchettes, and then direct or manual psychography. Psychography. Don't worry, you guys, we'll get it. I'll figure it out, I promise. So let's do it. Let's talk about indirect psychography, baskets, and planchettes. That's what we're on. Spiritist science has progressed like all the other sciences, but even more rapidly. Only a few short years separate us from the primitive and incomplete methods that were trivially called table turning to where we are now, communicating with spirits as easily and quickly as ordinary persons do amongst themselves, and by the same means, speaking and writing. Writing has the special advantage of, oh, excuse me, I burped because I was drinking, of physically demonstrating the intervention of a concealed power by leaving traces that we can preserve in the same way that we can preserve our own correspondences. Our first method was to use planchettes, or small baskets fitted with a pencil, and which were prepared as follows. As we have stated, a person gifted with a special aptitude can produce a rotational movement in a table or other object. Instead of a table, let us take a little basket of 4 to 6 inches in diameter. It does not matter if it's wood or wicker, the substance is not important. Now, if we firmly attach a pencil to the bottom of the basket with the tip pointed downwards and keep it balanced on a sheet of paper while placing our fingers on the edge of the basket, it will begin to move. Instead of turning, however, the basket will guide the pencil in various directions on the paper in order to trace meaningless symbols or letters. If a spirit is evoked and wishes to take part, it will respond not with raps, but by writing. The movement of the basket is not automatic like that of table turning. It becomes an intelligent process. Rigged, ridged, rigged in this manner, the pencil does not return to the margin to begin another line when it reaches the edge of the paper, but continues to write in a circle. The writing thus forms a spiral, which requires rotating the paper in order to read it. The writing received in this way is not always very legible because words are not separated, but by using a sort of intuition, the medium can easily decipher it. For the sake of economy, we can replace a paper and a pencil with a slate or a slate pencil. We shall call this little basket by the name of a spinning basket. The basket is sometimes replaced with a cardboard box similar to a little pillow box. with the pencil forming an axis, like in the game called Teotum. Many other gadgets have been invented for the same purpose, and the most convenient is what we call the Beaked Basket, which consists in fitting to the basket a wooden spindle in the inclined position and sticking it out of the basket a few inches, resembling a ship's bowsprit. After boring a hole in the tip of the spindle, a pencil is placed in, which is long enough to rest its point on the paper. And then the medium places his or her fingers on the edge of the basket, and the entire instrument moves with the pencil writing as described above, except that the writing is usually more legible with spaces between words, and the lines are not in a spiral but in parallel, as in normal writing, because the medium can easily return the pencil when each line is finished. We have obtained dissertations of many pages using this method, and as rapidly as if we had handwritten them ourselves. The manifesting intelligence often reveals itself through other unequivocal signs. For example, when coming to the end of the page, the pencil spontaneously makes a motion for it to be turned over. If it wants to refer to a preceding passage, the same page, or on another page, it indicates it with the pencil point, as someone would do with his or her finger, and underlines it. If the spirit wants to direct itself toward a particular participant, the tip of the wooden basket points towards that person. And for brevity, it often uses a special sign for yes or no, as we do by nodding or shaking our head. If it wants to show anger or impatient, it taps repeatedly with the pencil and often ends up breaking the point. Some persons replace the basket with a type of specially made miniature table about 5 inches in length and about 2 inches in height, with three legs and a pencil attached to one end, and the other is rounded or fitted with a little ivory ball so that they can slide easily across the paper. Now, this is called the planchette, you guys. This is called the planchette. Still, others simply use a square, triangular, or oval rectangular planchette, planchette about 5 inches long with an oblique hole near one of the edges into which the pencil is fitted. When placed on the paper to write, it tilts as it's supposed on one side of the paper. Sometimes it is fitted with small wheels on each side to facilitate the movement. And in conclusion, we should understand that there is nothing absolute about any of these devices. The most convenient is the best. With whichever type of apparatus is used, there must be two operators, but they do not both have to be mediums. One only serves to help balance the device and reduce the medium's fatigue. I want you guys to hear that really quick. They both do not have to be mediums, but one person helps to relieve the medium's fatigue. Now, if you notice, he talks about this a little bit in the previous chapters about how when spirits manifest or when they try to communicate, they will use the medium's faculties, the medium's energy, the medium's electromagnetic fluids to manifest and to communicate, which will oftentimes leave the medium very drained. Now, when you do it this way, like with a planchette or with like a writing apparatus, and you're doing it with more than one person, you're allowing the spirit to sort of quote unquote feed on the other people as well, so that the medium is not being 100% fully responsible for giving the spirit the energy needed to manifest. And so therefore sessions can go on longer, um, spirit communication can be more clearer, et cetera, because there are more people there to lend their energies to the spirit. All right, we're now on the subject of the direct or manual psychography. We call writing received in the above manner as indirect psychography, as opposed to direct or manual psychography written by mediums themselves. In order to understand the latter systems, one must know how it works. The communicating spirit acts upon the medium who, under its influence, then mechanically moves his or her hand or arm to write, but in most cases does not have the least awareness of what is being written. The hand acts upon the basket and the basket upon the pencil. Thus, the basket itself does not become intelligent, but only serves as an instrument for an intelligence. The basket is actually nothing more than a pencil holder and an extension of the hand and an intermediary between the hand and the pencil. By simply eliminating this intermediary and placing the pencil directly in the medium's hand, we get the same result with a much simpler mechanism since the medium writes as is done under normal conditions. Therefore, any medium who writes with the help of a basket, planchette, or other device can also do it directly. Of all the means of communicating, manual writing, which some call involuntary writing, is undoubtedly the simplest and easiest, most convenient, since it requires no preparation, and like ordinary writing, it lends itself to more extensive dissertations. We will return to the subject when we discuss mediums. When these manifestations first begin to appear, and as no one yet had precise understanding of them, there were many publications containing articles such as communications of a basket, of a planchette, of a table, etc. However, today we understand that such expressions are insufficient and erroneous, even without having to consider their frivolous character. Actually, as we have already seen, the tables, planchettes, baskets are not intelligent instruments at all, although although they are momentarily animated with fictitious life, yet none of them can communicate by themselves. Understanding to the contrary would be taking the effect for the cause, or the instrument for the principle. It would be like an author writing under the title of his or her book that it had been written by a metallic pen or by a goose quill. Furthermore, such instruments are not exclusive. We know someone who, instead of a spinning basket, uses a funnel with a pencil in the neck. Hence, communications could be received with a funnel, a saucepan, a salad bowl. If they are received by means of raps, not with a table, but with a chair or a walking stick, then there will not be a talking table, but a talking chair or a talking stick. One can see that what is important is to understand is not the instrument, but the manner in which the communication is obtained. No matter what supporters, no matter what supports the pencil, if we obtain them by writing, we call it psychography. If by raps, we call it typology. In taking on the proportions of an actual science, Spiritism requires scientific language. I love him so much. Yay! We are finally on the chapter of mediums. We are finally on the chapter of mediums, you guys. Finally. Look at this book. Look. It took all of this and we finally got to it. We might not finish this chapter. This is chapter 14. We might not finish this chapter. Hey Cosmos. Because it's gonna be, let me just actually take a look to see how long it is. Oh, it's actually not that bad. We might finish it. It's only 7:30. So let's do it. So this chapter, the mediums chapter, the subcategories are physical effects of mediums, electrical persons, sensitive or impressionable mediums, hearing mediums, speaking mediums, seeing mediums, somnambulistic mediums, healing mediums, and pneumatographical mediums. Oh, you guys, I butchered that word. I butchered that word. But basically, he's breaking down all the different types of mediums, and I'm sure that there's more. There's more as time has gone by, but these are the ones that he's got so far. Let's take a sip. Mm, okay. So every individual who senses the influence of spirits to any degree of intensity is a medium. I disagree, but I'm not Allan Kardak, so let's keep moving on. This faculty is inherent to humankind. It therefore does not constitute an exclusive privilege, and there are very few individuals who do not possess it, at least in a rudimentary state. So at least he's acknowledging that there are variations. I agree with that piece of it. I believe that being psychic and intuitive is something that humankind has the capability to do, but personally, being a medium is definitely a skill set. It's definitely something that like you have to have. We're not. Um, Thus, we can state that everyone is a medium to a certain degree. Usually, however, this label is applied solely to those who possess a well characterized mediumistic faculty that expresses itself through patent effects of a certain intensity, which depends on a more or less sensitive physical organization. One should further note that this faculty does not express itself in all mediums in the same way. Mediums usually have a special aptitude for this or for that phenomenon, which divides them into as many different varieties as there are kinds of manifestations. The main varieties are, and just like I listed, physical effect mediums, sensitive mediums, hearing, speaking, seeing, somnambulistic, healing, pneumatographic, and writing or psychographical mediums. So let's break them down. Let's talk about each and every one. So the physical effects medium, let's talk about them. Physical effects mediums are particularly able to induce physical phenomena such as movements of inert objects, noises, etc. They may be divided into facultative mediums and involuntary mediums. Facultative mediums are aware of their ability and induce spirit phenomenon through their own will. As we have stated, through this faculty is inherent in the human species. It is far from manifesting itself in all mediums to the same degree. However, if there are few individuals who do not possess it at all, there are even fewer who can induce impressive effects, such as suspending heavy objects in mid-air, moving them through the air, and especially inducing apparitions. The simplest effects involve the rotation of an object, wraps produced by the lifting of an object, or wraps produced internally in the object's own substance. Although we do not attribute any major importance to this phenomenon, we nevertheless do not believe they should be slighted. They can provide interesting observations and can contribute to strengthening one's convictions, but one should note that the faculty of inducing physical effects rarely manifests among those who have more advanced means of communication at their disposal, such as writing or speech. The faculty usually decreases to the degree that another develops. Involuntary or natural mediums are those who exert their influence without realizing it. They're unaware of their ability, and almost always, whatever happens around them that appears to be abnormal does not seem so extraordinary to them at all. These matters make up part of who they are, exactly like persons gifted with second sight, but who are unaware of it. These individuals are worthy of observation, and we should not neglect gathering and studying the facts of this kind that may come to our attention. They have occurred throughout history and frequently among young children. This faculty is not per se an indication of pathological state because it is not incompatible with perfect health. If the person who possesses it is ill, the illness is caused by something else. Moreover, therapeutic procedures are powerless to make it disappear. In some cases, it can appear after a certain period of organic weakness, but it is never the weakness of efficient cause. Therefore, there is no reason to become concerned with it as far as one's health is concerned. There would only be a problem if the individual, upon becoming a facultative medium, used it in an abusive manner, for then there could be an excessive emission of vital fluid, which could then result in organic weakening. Oh, I really want you to pay attention to that last sentence because this is what we call a universal law. Okay. The problem is if an individual, upon becoming a facultative medium, uses it in an abusive manner, for then there could be excessive emission of vital fluid, which could result in organic weakening. So if you use your mediumistic gift to be an asshole, basically, your vital energy, your vital fluid is going to start dissipating from you very, very, very quickly. You're going to start leaking because and your organic body is going to start getting weaker. And I talked about this in a previous live where I talked about your body being a vessel and you have certain thresholds, okay? Your body, based on how you care for it, based on how you care for your mediumistic abilities, based on how you care for your spirits, et cetera, will determine how high or how low your threshold is to hold and maintain vital fluid and vital energy. But if you do not take care of your body, if you do not take care of your spirits, if you abuse your mediumistic ability, your threshold will then go down and your ability to hold on to vital energy will be zilch. And you can get very sick and very ill. That's why when you look at all these people around here talking all this smack and puffing out their chest about how badass they are, but you actually really look at them and they be looking sickly and they be like gross and stuff and like not well. There's correlations to that. There's reasons for that. Okay. So I'm just putting that out there. Okay. So reason revolts at remembering the mental and physical tortures that sciences has sometimes inflicted on feeble and delicate persons in order to assure that there was no fraud on their part. Most of the time, such experiments performed with evil intentions are often harmful to sensitive organisms and can cause serious disorders in the organic economy. Performing tests such as these is to play with life itself. He basically just said, "Fuck around and find out." That's basically what he just said. You keep playing and you might die. I really don't know how else to say that. You keep playing, you're gonna find out. That's what he said. So performing tests such as these, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay. A good faith researcher does not need to employ such means. Those who are familiar with these phenomena, moreover, know that they belong more to the mental than to the physical order, and that it would be futile to try to find their solution in our exact sciences. Due to the fact that these phenomena belong to the mental order, everything that could overexcite the imagination of such persons should be avoided with no less rigorous caution. We know how many accidents can produce fear, and there would be less imprudence if we knew all the cases of mental infirmity and epilepsy that are provoked by stories of werewolves and boogeymen. So, what would happen if they could persuade someone that he or she was dealing with the devil? Those who seek to convince others of such ideas do not know the responsibility that they assume. They can kill. That is crazy to think about, right? That's crazy to think about. And that just goes to show just how important the responsibility of a medium is. You know what I mean? Like, you can't go around talking about, oh, this is the devil and this is this and because the mind is so powerful. And your words as the medium and as the person that people are coming to for help is so powerful. And what this book is saying is if you say the wrong thing, or if you allow your ego, or if you allow certain things to precede the doctrines, you could potentially kill somebody. You know, you could induce so much fear and so much uh uh illness within a person's mind that they can get themselves sick, you know? Crazy. Anyway, and this danger does not exist only for the patients themselves, but also for those around them who might become terrified by thinking that their house has become a den of demons. It was this disastrous belief that produced acts of atrocity in times of ignorance. Therefore, a little discernment would be sufficient to understand that in the burning bodies considered to be possessed by the devil, they did not burn the devil. Since they desire to free themselves of the devil, then they should have burned him instead. By enlightening us about the true cause of all these phenomenon, the Spiritist doctrine deals with the death blow to this belief. Thus, far from confirming such an idea, it is our moral and humane duty to fight it wherever it exists. And he's talking about ignorance here. He's talking about ignorance. When you see ignorance, when you see people spreading stuff like this, shut it down. Now, he's not talking about all of these like fluffy mediums out here that like don't believe in like fear-based whatever and oh, I don't want to, fear is not real, demons are not real, we can't think that way, it's like lower vibration. No, we're not talking about that because that's straight stupid. But we are talking about acknowledging that there are lower vibrational energies, acknowledging that there are things out there that can potentially harm us, but not inducing fear in people so much so that they can cause illness within themselves, so much so that their fear becomes a debilitating factor in their lives. They can't work anymore, they can't care for themselves anymore, they start making rash decisions. It can cause a lot more trouble than it's worth. And as a medium, that's your responsibility. When you take on that title of medium, that's what he's saying is your responsibility to ensure that you don't do and to ensure that you stop it when you see it. So, what should be done when a faculty of this kind spontaneously develops in an individual is to allow the phenomenon to follow their natural course. Nature is wiser than human beings. Moreover, providence has its plans, and the most humble creature may serve as the instrument of its broadest designs. Nonetheless, we must concede that the phenomenon sometimes assumes fatiguing and important proportions for everyone involved. In every case, this should be done. So in chapter 5, we talked about spontaneous physical manifestations, and we already provided some advice on the matter by stating that we must establish relations with the spirit in order to know what it wants. The following method is equally based on observation. So the invisible beings who reveal their presence through sensible effects are usually low order spirits whom we can control through moral ascendancy. And it is this condition of ascendancy that we must endeavor to acquire. So basically, if you want to have more control in your mediumistic abilities and have more control over the spirits that you are interacting with, you need to be of a higher ascendancy in your moral and intellectual ground. Okay? Because that's where the power comes from. That's where the will gets fed. Okay? And, he's basically saying here that in order to be in control of your space and be in control of those interactions, that's what's required. In order to do so, it is necessary that the individual pass from the state of natural medium to that of facultative medium. An effect is produced similar to what occurs during somnambulism. We know that natural somnambulism generally ceases when replaced by magnetic somnambulism. We talked about somnambulism in the first book, the Spirit's book. Somnambulism is a specific term that also has a lot to do with your dreams and stuff like that, but it's too complicated to talk about now. So go back to the Spirit's book and learn about that term, somnambulism. The liberating faculty of the soul is not extinguished, but it's rather given another course to follow. The same thing happens when the mediumistic faculty, instead of preventing the manifestations, which can rarely be done and is not free of danger, we must teach the medium to induce them by the will, imposing it upon the spirit. In this way, the medium manages to overpower it, making a dominating and sometimes tyrannical spirit into a subordinate and frequently quite docile one. A noteworthy fact is that the experience has confirmed that in such a case, a child can have the same or even greater authority than an adult. This is another proof of which the fundamental principle of the doctrine, according to which a spirit is only a child due to its physical body, but has within itself a development that had acquired prior to its current incarnation, which can confer upon its ascendancy over spirits who are less evolved. So he's saying even the most lower vibrational spirit, even the most like aggressive, like nasty, like rude, frivolous spirit, if you have agency within your ascendancy as a medium, you can squash that shit. You can be like, no, no. And they have no choice but to be subordinate. They have no choice but to listen because you're coming from a higher elevated state. Okay. And it's the same concept as, like, let's say you're doing a house cleansing, right? When you do a house cleansing, you're not doing it by yourself. You're calling in your higher elevated spirits to accompany you during that cleansing to help assist getting rid of the lower vibrational spirits. Why? Because they are of a higher vibration. Because their energy just in and of themselves cleanses space. So you're asking them to come in and do work with you. And you can do the same thing by yourself as well. Now, the moralization of a spirit through the counsels of a third influential and experienced individual, if the medium is in no position to do so, is nearly always an effective means. We shall return to this subject later. Okay, I'm actually going to stop here because we are at 7:48. And I'm still on the mediums chapter, chapter 14. And we just got finished talking about the physical effects medium. I'm sorry, what are we on? Did I lose it? Oh shit, did I lose it? I did lose it. Anyway, my point is we will pick up where we left off next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But in the meantime, I want to answer your questions. So you guys have 10 minutes. Do you guys have any questions? Um, yes, Phoenix, definitely. You can Google Allan Kardec's The Spirit Book and the Mediums book. There are full PDF versions for free. Um, and I believe actually in our group, Phoenix, at the group, the Magical Solution, This Is How We Grow group, if you go into the files section, I believe we uploaded those books in the files section. So you can just grab that right out of there um, and read for yourself. If you need to listen to the audio of it, by all means, go back to my YouTube channel, The Magical Solution. You can hear all the previous chapters, no problem. Um, but yeah, it's question time. It was mind-blowing, Cosmos. It really is. And like all of his books are like this. Like all of his books are so crazy. And I'm going to this is the only one I'm going to read after the spirit, like I did the spirits book and this is the only other one I'm going to read, even though he has an entire series. So I definitely suggest that you read the entire series. It's so good. But I only wanted to read these first two because I feel like this is where like the crust of what a medium really truly needs to know. And then I'm going to move to another very, very famous medium who lived in Brazil um, around the time of Allan Kardec, and who also wrote a series of books that's so influential in our community, especially the mediums of BIPOC and Espiritistas and people who consider themselves part of the ATRs who use Espiritismo as kind of like the first part of their growth into the ATRs. So I want to start his first two books as well so that you can kind of see where that energy comes from and what that looks like. I'm really excited about that. So, what was the question? Let me see. Yeah, Spirit definitely handles the scammers for sure. They don't last long. They don't last long. Yeah. I got a laundry list of books too, baby. Ugh, unbelievable. Hey, I used to be able to tell the future from a few minutes to a few hours. It felt like it happened in the past, though. What is that called? So you're remembering the future. Interesting. Interesting. That's a psychic ability. That's definitely a psychic ability. Because okay, so when we talk about psychic abilities and when we talk about the different faculties of a medium, um, obviously Alan Kardec is not gonna. Well, he might actually. I don't recall if he talks about this. Hold on. I'll have to look it up and let you know. But as we know, as we've moved on from the times of Alan Kardec, the art of mediumship and psychic abilities and all that have definitely been refined. Like there have been many other psychics that have come along, have really kind of narrowed down the requirements and the practices and really kind of fine-toothed it and polished it all up. And one of the things that we've learned is that part of our psychic ability, it relies very, very heavily on our memory. It relies very heavily on our memory and our ability to recall information. Even though in the psychic spiritual world, time technically doesn't exist. So, with that said, your memory can technically recall something that hasn't happened yet. It can recall the future. And because time doesn't exist in that psychic space. And so that is very much a psychic ability. That is very much a psychic ability. Exactly, and how harmful they can be if they're underdeveloped. Exactly. You have so many people out here, Cosmos, that wanna run before they walk, and there are so many people out here who identify as empath or medium or psychic or this, who have only been practicing for, like, 5 fucking minutes and don't realize that there are people who are seeking serious, serious help. Like, I've had clients who were homeless. I've had clients who were in the justice system. I had clients who were in domestic violence situations. I have had clients where they didn't know where they were going to get their next meal from, all kinds of stuff that relied really, really heavily on what their next step was going to be and felt like they had nowhere else to go but a psychic, and asked them and begged me, "What is my next step? What do I do?" And the next few words that were gonna come out of my mouth was gonna make or break that person's life. Make or break that person's life. That is so serious, and so to to be out here taking people's money and doing this when you've only been in it is so, 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 so dangerous. It's so dangerous. So, like I really want you to understand, like you gotta vet people. You gotta it's not just about age. It's not about age because I've actually met a lot of young people, 20s, late teens who have been around the block. They've gone through some shit. They've done their research. They are out there. Those kids are real. But they are far and few in between. I'm sorry, far and few in between. So, like, you gotta vet, you gotta ugh, it's so scary. It's so scary, you guys. Good evening, Sean. Yeah. Oh, man. Exactly. You still have to try even as a professional, Sean, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Even as a professional, we still need to be very careful of what we say. Very careful what we say. And people and especially now, oh my gosh, you guys, we're in the midst of a severe I mean, this is unprecedented. We're in the midst of severe pandemic. People are losing their jobs. People are dying. People don't have health insurance. Freaking abortion was just banned in like practically all the states. like, just all kinds of crazy shit's happening, and so what happens? People go to alternative medicines. People seek out alternative therapies in the hopes that they can get healed, in the hopes that they can get help, in the hopes that they can get whatever it is that they're getting, that they were once getting. And this is a very fertile ground for charlatans and opportunists and people of ill intent, but it's also a very dangerous ground for even professionals because now you're dealing with people with really, really, really big issues, bigger than you've ever dealt with before, who are in a lot more of a desperate state. And you say the wrong thing or you do the wrong thing, you've now added fuel to the fire. And people who are desperate will oftentimes result to desperate measures and will do crazy shit. So it's important to just kind of, you stay calm, you stay centered, you meditate, you work with your spirit, and be confident enough to say, I don't know. Be confident enough to say, you know what? That's a little out of my wheelhouse. I've only done that maybe once or twice, like, with minimal success. So I don't want to try that with you. Why don't I refer you to so and so? And you refer them. This is why our community is so important. This is why talking with each other and making connections with each other and understanding each other's gifts are so important. It should not be a competition. It should be, what are your strengths? Okay, cool. These are my strengths. Okay, cool. And then that way, when you come up with a client who needs a strength that you don't have, but you know someone who has it, you give it to them. And vice versa. You can't do it all. You're not meant to do it all. You know what I mean? Oh man, you guys. Me too. Right. Oh, that's so great. That's so great, Candyman. Let's see what Lucianne says here. I controlled a flame once, but I was exhausted for days afterward. I'm scared to try that again. And that's okay. And that happens at the beginning. And that's just because you weren't setting a boundary for your energy, for your vital energy. So it's okay. Like, think of it like this. Think of it like this, you guys. Think of it like there's a bubble around you, okay? And this bubble, you have this tiny itty bitty little door that stands right here. And when you want to do something psychically, you want to move a flame, you want to like do something just to kind of practice, you just open up that little door just a little bit. Boop. You open up that door and you allow yourself to engage with that flame, and then you close the door when you're done. But the rest of you has that bubble around you, and you're not pulling all of yourself. You're only allowing a little bit to kind of leak out to do the thing, right? Or if you work with spirits, instead of using your own vital force, you can call your spirits in and you can say to your spirits, hey, help me to move this flame. I really want to try and practice this thing. And you allow them to sort of work through you and work so that you don't get exhausted. Or another thing that you can do is you can use universal energy, right? So this is energy from space, from the earth, from the trees, from whatever. And you pull those energies in towards you. And when you pull that in, what's going to start happening is you're going to start feeling like, ooh, I'm getting full, like your cup is about to overflow. And when you start to feel that, that means you got enough now. You're like, okay, 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 I gotta go channel it now. I gotta go do the thing. And so you go do the thing and you'll start to notice you start coming back down again, back to your regular threshold. So there are techniques, but I totally get what you're saying. I understand. I remember for myself when I was first doing that kind of stuff, um, I would sleep for like days afterwards. Days. Nice. All right, guys. Well, it was a lot of fun hanging out with all of you. It is now 8 o'clock, and I promised that I would offer some readings to everyone. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put down all of these lives. I'm gonna take a quick potty break, and then I'm gonna come back on, and we are gonna do some live readings. And for those of you on TikTok, just give me 5 minutes. Let me go to the bathroom and I'll come back on TikTok. For those of you here on Facebook and YouTube and all places, just know that I'm going to be doing this only on Facebook. So go to Facebook, The Magical Solution, and I will be doing the live then. Just give me 5 minutes. Go to the link in my profile. And in my profile, you'll see PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, all the different apps. And you just give me a donation of 11.11 and you got yourself a reading for tonight. Okay? So thank you so much for joining me. Next week, we will finish up chapter 14 and onward. And make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the things to help the sister out. And also remember that tonight at midnight, this girl right here is going to be launching her first website. I'm super excited and I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys check it out. And that's it. Okay, I love you. Have a good